Which I want to talk about this. Japan just took a hard stance on gaming. I want to hear what's been happening over there in Japan, at least on the gaming development side. I am super curious to hear. And we got ourselves Mug Thief making a commentary video on it.
We've got pretty big news. See, Japan has come out and said that live services just aren't a thing for them anymore, pretty much.
Really?
Most of the major Japanese developers and publishers have come out to say that they don't actually think live services are something worth pursuing, and instead of
I think they saw what's happening with Marathon and they said, back it up, back it up, get it the fuck out of here. No, get it the fuck out. No, cancel them. No. We saw what's happening with Sony. Sony lost a shit ton of money on that Bungie shit over there. Nah, we ain't doing this shit. They saw exactly what was happening over there. They're like, no.
they're going to follow a pretty interesting new plan, one that includes bringing back old IP that people have been just screaming for years, developing new IP, and of course pushing the existing one, but not in the form of live services. Alongside that, there are some very important shifts to how some of these companies want to operate, and that spell very good news for the future of not just games from Japan, but potentially games everywhere, because these could set a trend. These companies are very big, and they're trying some very interesting things.
Okay.
And in this video, we're talking primarily about Sega, Capcom, Konami, Square Enix, and why not Nihon Falcom? And we'll also talk about the outliers in this situation being kind of Bandai Namco, half and half on that, and of course,
Bandai Namco is they need to lose. They're like kind of like the EA of the Japan side, because they have like all the anime IPs, and I want them to like at least like give other developers or other companies to use the IP to make games, at least,
PlayStation, if you want to consider them Japanese at this point.
Anime games,
and you might have already heard about some of the big headlines from this going on. Stuff like Sega canceling their Super game. There's more to that than you think.
So let me see. So Sega has officially canceled Mystery Super game that sounded like a Fortnite wannabe. What the fuck? They were trying to do a Fortnite game? That's pretty good. Smart move, to be honest. Good thing they canceled it, to be honest, because there was no way they were going to do that. 5 years after announcing its massive mysterious super game project, Sega has unceremoniously canceled whatever that was going to be in an earnings release. A parent company of Sega, Sammy, announced bluntly that it's decided to cancel the Super game after it reviewed the company's strategies on free-to-play games as a service. Sega says that some free-to-play game development personnel, more than 100 people, have already been transferred to other full game development teams that are focused on mainstay IPs. In other words, Sega is...
Trust me, but there is
Let me see. Hold on. I just want to see that article. In other words, Sega is backing down on the super game plans to stick with its tried and true game franchises. That includes still in development games like the new Jet Set Radio game, the Crazy Taxi, the Golden Axe, the Streets of Rage game announced in 2023 at the Game Awards. Okay.
me, but there is an overall pattern going on here that is very, very exciting. It's very positive. This is a good news video, which I love doing, but a lot of those patterns aren't revealed unless you dig pretty deep. You might think that this is all sunshine and rainbows and just playing video games over here, but the truth is that every quarter I pride myself on going through all of the financial reports and the earning calls. Exciting documentation like this. Isn't this fun? Look at all of this. However, I used to actually have to draft and prepare documents like this in a previous pre-YouTube life. So to me, reading through this and parsing the information that matters is like breathing. And the hidden information in all of this, translating the numbers and the corpo speak to what the future actually holds and what these companies are focusing on, oh boy, we've got reasons to be excited. Because you know that whole drum I've been banging on for like the last year and a half about how live services just don't make money and they need to wake up? Well, hey, I've said it before, but the industry's waking up And this time they're just screaming it from the rooftop. So, hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. You are looking absolutely fantastic today, especially in light of this good news. Good news always makes people look even better. If you like anything in this video, make sure to hit the like button. I think there's a lot of information here that's worth sharing and worth spreading around, so that always helps. And if you really like what I do when it comes to news, reviews, essays, deep dives, and yes, retrospectives on games, some of the footage of those is actually going to be used in this video, consider subscribing. Just make sure that I earn it. Don't do so yet. Wait a bit, check out the channel, make sure that what I do is worth that subscription. Also, I'm wearing my Sonic Racing t-shirt, and if for some reason you have any affiliation with Sega, I obtained this totally legitimately. I would never take this from a booth without permission. I think that felt convincing. Now look, we've got a lot of companies to cover, and I feel like it could get pretty boring if we just went through all of the stuff for each company. So I really want to focus on the big picture, on what some of the trends that we are seeing, and then maybe diving into some of the specifics of why they're doing it. The biggest overall trend is abandoning attempts at live services. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to make any, especially in the case of Japan. They're a very mobile-focused country. They find a lot of success with anything that is generally portable, whether that was portable consoles back in the day, the Switch today, or mobile phones today. So they do mention that they're still going to support and partner with different companies in order to make those sorts of live service games, but primarily focused on mobile. Stuff like the upcoming Monster Hunter Gacha game, which I've heard very mixed things about, but I've heard some people say that it plays pretty much just like Monster Hunter, but with a gacha live service on top. And although specifically that it feels a lot like the older Monster Hunters, like 4 and Generations, so which you might still hate, but at least they're making an actual video game and not just a poor excuse to get people's money. However, the fact that Japan is still producing some of these games doesn't change the fact that the overall trends are very different now, especially because mobile gaming has been declining as people return to console games, and PC is one of the biggest growth markets for them.
Wait, are you serious? It's like, oh, it makes sense though. It makes sense because a lot of the gacha games, right? At least a lot of the big ones have PC clients. So they'd be playing it on PC instead of a mobile phone, because at the end of the day, you know, it is a pretty big ass fucking storage on the goddamn fucking mobile phone, and a good chunk of them, Withering Waves, it's not well optimized on the phone as well. Plus, also Genshin Impact has stopped updating on the PS4 as well. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. PC Master Race reigns supreme once again. Yeah. Nihon Falcom is a Japanese dev and the publisher that makes good games like The Legend of Heroes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I was surprised when that name popped up
as well. So while you can still completely expect companies like Konami to support eFootball and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Square Enix to still try really weird stuff and do Dissidia Duelim and all that, it's not where the focus is, and that is reflected in all of their statements. None of them—
I will say this, and I will say this now. We should have had a new Dissidia game instead of a new fucking mobile Dissidia game. That's all I have to say about that, okay? All right? I was so pissed off when I was so excited when I saw the trailer for the Dissidia game, and then watching it like almost like halfway or like a quarter in, I was like, this is a fucking mobile game. I am so disappointed so badly.
Are focusing on that, and some of them are even actively disparaging, just saying like, this is bad, we should have never done this, including Sega. Fun fact about Sega, they own Rovio. People forget that. They own Angry Birds. It was a weird time, man. I don't know what to tell you. And Sega announced in 2021 that their future plans included not just bringing back all of their old iconic IPs, stuff like Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, but their biggest project was going to be spending over $1 billion with a B on Super Game, which is the funniest name that you could give to a game. The idea behind it was to make a game that took advantage of Sega IP and was bigger than the sum of its parts, to be an ultra live service game that would fuel the core revenue, the operating profits of the company for years and years to come. Everything—
it's always that mentality when it comes to the live service games. It's never like, how do we make this fun for the players and the players to enjoy? No, it's like, how are we going to nickel and dime every single fan base of the Sega franchise with the Sonic, the Crazy Taxi, what was that, Streets of Rage, fuck it, insert whatever, like, Sega IP under one specific game,
Was centered around Super Game. That was the future. And Sega has announced that they're not doing that anymore. That they've seen what the live service market is like, they've seen what they're working on, and they also know how.
Hold on. Review of the gas strategy. Review the strategic positioning of gas free-to-play. So new free-to-play titles struggled in the FYI 2026 third quarter. Weak performance of Sonic Rumble Party did not achieve the creation of economic value through collaborations with Rovio, delay in launch of some titles. Didn't they also, like, I remember Square Enix made that live service bubble game that also failed too as well. Decided to cancel Super Game. Future direction. Review the positioning of the pillars for medium to long-term growth. Lowered the priority of free-to-play. Some of the free-to-play development personnel, over 100 people, have already been transferred to full game development. Team focusing on mainstay IPs. Rovio will continue the efforts towards a global gas, but will focus on its own rebuilding first. That makes sense.
Some of the mobile parts of things are working with Rovio, specifically because last year they released Sonic Rumble, which, yes, I did play, and I found to be one of the worst video games I have ever played. Not worth a full video, but it was just really bad. And they don't think that the return on investment is there to even try out more live services. Look at that. That's everybody go yay. And so they're abandoning that. And instead, most of these companies keep repeating two things: IP and catalog. Now, IP is pretty self-explanatory. They want their intellectual property, so their franchises, their characters, all of that, to gain value, to make sure that they don't lose prestige over time, especially because certain companies are making way more money than you might think just by licensing their characters. I'm not joking. Digging deep into Square Enix's financial report, a lot of their income was saved because of their collaboration with Magic the Gathering. Just licensing characters and having them be present on merchandising or collabs brings in a substantial amount of money, but that depends on making sure those characters retain value.
That makes sense. That actually makes sense. That actually makes sense. This blows my mind on how close RE was to dying off because of RE6.
Catalog, though, sounds a bit strange. But again, digging deeper into it, you start to see what they mean. A good example is Capcom. Within their presentation, Capcom highlights that a lot of the money that they've made this year, the 10th year ongoing that they increased their operating profits by over 10% year over year, translation doing very well, is fueled by their back catalog and sales. Not just selling, but like actual Steam sales, PlayStation Store sales. Basically saying that pumping out really good single-player games that continue to function years and years into the future, and then consistently, repeatedly, on a good schedule, lowering the price on those and giving them that advertisement boost from sales.
Wow, surprise Pikachu face. Making a good single-player game actually brings in money? Wow, who would have thought that? I'm not gonna lie, to be fucking honest. It's just kind of like, no fucking duh. I was like, wow, maybe we should stop making these live service games and make single player games again. Oh my god, we're getting money from Resident Evil Requiem single player game? Wow, I didn't even know this was where the money was at. Mind fucking blown, dude. I'm like, no fucking duh. That's what literally gamers have been asking for so long. Ever since the live service slop have been coming out so often, people are just sick and tired of it. You can't, like, the reason why, okay, the first couple of live service games are literally going to be there forever because they already garnered their community and their fan base. And then you add more live service on it, it's like, How are you gonna pull the players that have been playing those games for so many years, spend so much money, spend so much time in those specific games? How are you gonna pull them away from that favorite game that they like to this new game? In order for them to get out from that specific game, is that that specific company or that developer has to fuck up on their live service game in order for them to move on to a different game. That's just how it works. You can't kill that game. It can only kill itself. Okay, that's just how it works. So the question is, I would ask them, how are you going to pull them away from the game that they've been playing for many years? You can't, because they've been stuck there forever. It's called what is it, lost cause fallacy or whatever it's called or so. They don't want to lose basically like the money that they spend in that game, you know, the amount of skins and weapon skins and charms and like whatever the fuck other shenanigans. They just don't want to lose that overall. So that's why they don't want to start all over again into a different game. And then, you know, if you have a single player game, especially coming out modernly, like what they're doing or so, if they could manage to like make a game that comes out in the summertime, it would be kind of nice personally, because I'm personally kind of sick and tired of them coming out at the end of the year and at the beginning of the year. It'd be better if we could have, you know, at least some of the releases come out during the summertime. Would be kind of nice. That's just my personal opinion. And then also like lowering the prices on them, especially just how gaming is overall in general, is also a good idea as well. Wow, surprise Pikachu face. Even I could have fucking told you this, to be frankly honest. Yeah, it was EA. EA was the one that said that.
Leads to a huge increase in the amount of money they make, and it's hard to argue with that. Capcom has consistent sales on platforms like Steam. At the time of recording, they have a Devil May Cry sale going on, and there's a ton of people playing Devil May Cry, to the point that it's a noteworthy spike when it comes to concurrent players, which I believe is
like Devil May Cry 5 goes on sale quite a lot, and then people pick it up because it's on an actual good sale. When it's on when there's a good sale on these video games, of course I'm gonna pick them up immediately because they're on good sale. Why wouldn't I? I'm like sometimes these games come out like. Plus, at the same time, people are a little bit skeptical or so in this today and age, right? That like, you know, you don't know if the game is going to be good or if the game is going to be bad, right? So
a much healthier strategy than gambling on live services that you pump millions into and can completely flop. Instead, you can have games like Devil May Cry 5, which sold over 271,000 copies between March of 2025 and March of 2026. This is a game that released in 2019. So obviously they've got it down, and they understand that going back and selling Resident Evil franchise sale, Devil May Cry franchise sale, Monster Hunter franchise sale, these things consistently boost everything. And they find those boosts of just that back catalog that they have sitting there considerably better of an investment than actually spending tons and tons of money on maintaining live services. Sega seems to be aiming for the same type of deal. They want to make sure that they pump out good games that can live on storefronts for many years to come and be played and be put on sale. And even with
I think they've also been noticing what China has been doing too as well. At least when it comes to like their games overall, that their single player games have also been popping off. You know, there's a good amount of like single player games from China. Well, I think there's only one good game that sold very well in Korea, which is Stellar Blade. I can't really name any other ridiculous big IP from Korea because I have like minimal minimal expectations with Korea, at least when it comes to games. China seems to already understand like what they're basically striving for. Japan was sort of somewhat getting influenced by a little bit of American people, and then they started slowly falling down too with the Western side of the Western side developers. And then they started to notice that they are starting to lose money, and then they noticed the big. I think what actually gave them the big wake up call was definitely the Sony thing, right? Definitely like the Sony thing. What's the massive Concord loss. The massive freaking marathon, thing that's been happening too. What else? What other game that we had that was like live service? Oh yeah, Hunter's Gathering is also will be coming out for that one. Oh yeah, Crimson Desert sold a lot, but it's still definitely not that good though. It's good gameplay wise, but it's not good. It's not good story wise. And if there's no story in that one, oh yes, High Guard. I forgot the High Guard game too as well. Like I think they've been noticing that like what's been happening in like in the Western Hemisphere, in like in the video game form, they noticed that like man, we shouldn't really be copying what they're doing. We should be doing what we do best, which is anime anime, JRPG, RPG, you know, 3D action hack and slash games, single player games to our player base. Because number one, that's where you guys originated from to begin with. Is the single player RPG type of game. You know, that's where they came from. That's what they're good for. The reason why they enjoy that is because they like the, I guess you could say, you know, the influence of like their culture in the game, you know, when it comes to certain RPGs. You know, that's what they like, you know? They don't want the this like Americanized like version of their game. That's not what they want. They want what you guys create specifically.
Last year's, at least according to them, slightly disappointing performance of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, they are even more focused on games that do not require any multiplayer component at all. The true return of single player.
It kind of sucks that this game didn't do very well because I really thought this game was really fun. But the problem is that like not even most of my community bought it, so I couldn't really do any community nights. Would have been fun to do a community nights, but you fuckers didn't even buy it, so I'm just saying.
Is here. It's interesting to see this shift across not just companies that haven't done well with their live services, but companies that have. Konami with their new efforts between trying to bring back Silent Hill, the very cute octopus game Darwin's Paradox, which is a cinematic platformer, think something like Inside, and their upcoming projects from Silent Hill Townfall to their brand new IP that they're working on, to of course the new Evil Empire Castlevania game. It seems that their focus is very much on not depending on online services for a game to be successful, meaning that building that back catalog.
I literally told everybody ahead of time that we were going to be using this game as a community game, and none of you bitches bought it. I'm going to call you out, chat, because you all bitches, you didn't buy it, so we're not getting any community night. You're going to sit there in the cuck chair and you're going to watch fucking food videos now.
Long-term view of the future instead of get live service money now is the prevailing philosophy right now in Japan. The only one that's a bit strange on that, and also is going to segue straight into the second big, really important and not as obvious takeaway from all of these Japanese companies' financial reports, is Square Enix, which is still, they're still trying to figure it out, man. I feel really bad for Square because they're one of my favorite companies, and I'm not talking about old Square. I'm talking about current Square. I'm talking about the Square Enix that, despite putting out weird Final Fantasy Battle Royales and Killer In, yeah, an Among Us game in 2026, that was bound to be real successful. Oh, yep, that went.
Oh my God! It didn't even crack 1,000. It did not even crack 1,000 players. My God, Jesus Christ! Yeah, I remember this game being announced. It's that weird like werewolf game, like yeah, the Among Us type of. It's like the problem is like they went for this like realistic setting and look. If they would have went for a more stylized look, it would have been a lot shorter development time, and they could have got it out a little bit early. But the problem is with these developers, there's so many cooks in the kitchen. It takes so long or so to make that. I'm like, you don't really need that many developers to make a fucking Among Us game, okay? All right, let's be honest here. Or like a inspired Among Us type of game. You know, it's just kind of like, yeah. I'm like, it's not hard, okay? All right, you don't need that many people on the dev team for it. I'm like, look at the Among Us team.
Pretty much as I expected it to go. For all of their terrible mistakes, they still keep pumping out weird games, man. They still make mistakes when they do that, though. Like Visions of Mana, that game got its studio kind of destroyed, despite it not doing terribly. Stranger of Paradise, the Final Fantasy, like, Neo version of it is like a great game. I like that Square still tries weird stuff, and it fails, and they still try. And
this is the game that had that trailer that was constantly the main character would say chaos all the time. I think it was chaos, right? Dude, that fucking trailer was wild, to be honest. He said chaos almost like every single sentence. Chaos! Chaos!
At least the people who play them go like, yeah, that's cool. Keep doing more of that. It's just kind of rough for them. Square seems to be figuring out exactly what it needs to do by virtue of doing it and failing consistently and then finally swearing off of it. But Square also has a different mentality towards live services because a very big part of the company is
Probably
indeed Final
5.
Fantasy XIV, a game that I have put 800 hours into, which I know is chump change compared to many people, but I'm trying to say I really like Final Fantasy XIV. So they have a different view of general operations, but if truth is to be believed, which some of their expectations for next year put that in doubt, they're still banking on big gigantic AAA games, including Final Fantasy VII. The leaked title so far is Return, or the third part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. This will be the first one to release simultaneously on PC. So maybe this is the one that's actually going to break out and be very successful from day one.
I hope
Again,
so.
they keep learning from their mistakes slowly. And according to other companies, primarily Capcom, the PC market is incredibly important, if not the main priority that companies.
Say that one more time and say your apologies for Monster Hunter Wilds. Shut the fuck up, because I know for a fact you did it for the fucking revenue change, okay? I will never let go what you did to fucking Monster Hunter Wilds. I will never fucking let it go. Anniversary my fucking ass, dude. I will call it out and say that Monster Hunter Wilds is fucking trash, okay? I don't give two flying shits, bro. That game was dog water.
Should have right now, which, if you've watched the channel before,
say that one more
you know
time.
that not only do I
PC players
personally
are
agree,
important.
but
Fucking
the
fix your
numbers
game.
agree as well. The bottom line is Square is a bit iffy, and they're not doing great.
I knew for a fact that that game was not the Monster Hunter game that I envisioned, especially for it being the anniversary year for it. That shit fucking, I knew for a fact I beat that game literally straight up, no joke. It took me like either 2 days and a half or a day and a half. That's how fast I beat that game. And I only died once because I miscalculated the damage on the Guardian Rathalos, and that was basically it. It's okay, Cole. Monster Hunter Wilds got sacrificed, so RE9 and Pragmatic could be amazing. I don't give a fuck. That's my favorite franchise. Monster Hunter is my favorite franchise. And I will not be buying a new Monster Hunter game because I know for a fact they're gonna fuck it up again. Because they like to cater. They've been dumbing down so much shit in that game. It pisses me the fuck off how much they dumbed that shit down. Just because they wanted to grab a more wider audiences. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, brother, your core audience itself will be coming back and then they will share how good the game is to their friends and they will explain to them how the game plays. And even then, you can definitely refine the UI and the tutorial for the game for the new players. But they completely, and I will be honest with you, they completely butchered the shit out of my class for Monster Hunter, which I play heavy bowgun. They made that shit so easy, I can literally play that shit blindfolded or falling asleep to that shit because it's just ridiculously easy how they made that class so dumb. They made that class so dumb that anyone can play it. Compared to Monster Hunter's World version of the heavy bowgun, you have to know when to put away your weapon, when to dodge, and when to like, cause you can't rely on the shield. I'm like, in Monster Hunter Wild, that shield is equivalent to a lance user, which makes no sense. That's all I have to say about that. I'm like, if I can survive a breath from Jin Daha's fucking blizzard cannon, and I cannot survive the same attack as fucking, what's her name? Kolve Taroth's fire breath, that says a lot, okay? That says a lot of things in general. All I have to say is, I have a lot of criticism about Monster Hunter Wilds. People hated me for calling Wilds out on how bad the game actually is. They all hated me. But you want to know something? They never said I was wrong. Because I was right. And people said that was game of the year. I laughed at their asses off because you are utterly ridiculous to be saying that this is game of the year. That's all I have to say about that. And guess who was right all along? Guess who was right all along? Me, bitches. Because you wanna know why? I've been here since the original Monster Hunter game. That's the reason why. Get on my fucking level. And I'm not being an elitist. It's called fucking playing video games. Fucking get off my fucking pussy, bitch. Sorry, I just had to call them out. I'm not gonna lie. I just had to call them out specifically.
Despite the weird things that they do that I truly do enjoy. But what has saved them is currency exchange. I'm serious. The fact that the yen is down in the dumps and the euro and the dollar are pretty high means that spending in the West is bringing them in way more cash than it did before. And of course, this isn't just for Square Enix,
Pretty
this
much.
is for every Japanese company. Every dollar and every euro that people spend is worth way more than it has been in the past, making
That
the
is very
West an
true.
important priority when it comes to making the most money possible, while the Japanese yen is kind of down in the dumps. This means that companies right now, sometimes veiled in a couple of comments and sometimes more outwardly, like is the case with Square Enix, talk about the importance of appealing to the West. And I think there's two ways of interpreting that. One is scarier than the other. Option one is that they're going to try and modify the games that they make to appeal to the West, which is something that Japan already did. If you remember, there was
Yeah.
a time where all of the Japanese companies were kind of outsourcing their games and their IP to Western studios in order to cater to the West, and that did not go well.
Yep.
And maybe they might try to do that again. But
I hope they
alternatively,
don't.
the good outcome would be that these companies would be more incentivized to focus on the platforms that the West is currently on. So PC.
The only reason why is that the Western audience loves Japan stuff. They love the Japanese, all of the Japanese culture and the Japanese like the jokes and everything, just everything around Japan. They like it. They love it. The Europeans and the Western, the American Western side, they love it. They don't want you to give, to give your IPs to the Western side and have them cater to them. That's not what they like. They like because they came from the actual original creator and they saw the vision from the actual person from Japan, a different perspective, a different view, different creativity, different overall. That's what they want. That's literally is what they want specifically. They want what the original creator has done, because we all know for a fact if you give it to the Western audiences, man, that's just going to be filled with so many agendas and mistranslation as well. Well, mistranslation on purpose. And for a fact, it's just not going to end very well, to be honest.
That's a very important part of this. PC, Steam Deck, Linux, Steam Machine, etc. And making sure that their localization and release schedules are on point, which doesn't apply to some of the bigger companies, but it does apply to some. Specifically, my dark horse, my beloved and never truly appreciated Nihon Falcom, which absolutely crushed last year thanks to the release of Trails in the Sky first chapter.
I want to play the Trails in the Sky. I do. I really do. But fuck, do they come in on the wrong time or something when they're on sale? I swear to God. They come in on the wrong time when they're on sale. I want to pick it up when it's on sale, but they always come in at the worst time possible when it's on sale.
Remake. An excellent game that I played through, and I strongly recommend you do as well, because I'm taking what the people that have played these games say and believing them that this year when they release second chapter, it's going to blow all of us away, because the first chapter was really good and people say that the second one is like 50 times better. The success of that game and the fact that they are continuing their more Western focused remakes in the sense of, good localization, a bit more timely in the release, still not as timely as they should, but more timely, combined with the fact that they're releasing games that are absolutely wild this year, including Kyoto Xanadu, which is a game I'm incredibly excited for, means that these slightly more niche and less international companies are more incentivized than ever to try and make their games appear in Western markets day and date, and with actual care and attention paid to localization. To me, that's a huge win for
Are they
all
actually
of
paying
us
attention to
gamers,
the
because we get
localizers
to
now?
experience great games
To making sure they don't
faster,
and
and
change some
hopefully
shit.
at an overall better quality. I've been digging through some of my favorite Nihon Falcom games, and I've already shown you some gameplay on screen up till now, but yeah, there will be a retrospective on Xanadu next, because that's fascinating. That's a fascinating concept. On top of all of this information, we have a lot of what they want to do with philosophies and practice, not just taking care of IP, but we've seen Capcom push back against stuff like AI, as if the entire storyline of Pragmata wasn't already something that just outwardly says no to AI. But they came out and complained about the DLSS 5 version of Grace Ashcroft that Nvidia pumped out there that they apparently never approved of. And a lot of that seems to be the status quo for most of these companies, especially when we look at the ones that are kind of teetering on the edge of success between Sega, Konami, and Square. They all seem aligned now in what they want to chase, regardless of their current circumstance or where their money's coming from. They all seem to agree on what the focus is. Sega particularly is looking to make it big this year with Stranger Than Heaven, a game that I'm so glad that I get to fit this in here as an excuse to talk about it. Looks crazy. Now, I am a Yakuza fan, not just any old Yakuza fan. No, I'm a controversial Yakuza fan because I think that 7 and 8 are fantastic. I love the RPG Yakuza. I thought 7 was already very well executed, but the actual combat system in 8 and everything surrounding that game, you know, a lot of people hate it. I think it's really damn good. But Stranger Than Heaven being this more cinematic, epic 50-year storyline, also kind of a musical, and a prequel to Yakuza, I think they're really banking on that being a major success for RGG, one that they can ride for a while, and that could potentially boost the RGG back catalog into sales, which would be great if they didn't keep screwing up stuff like Kiwami 3 and delisting games. So maybe listen to the fans, RGG. And from everything we've seen of Stranger Than Heaven, it looks like it might just achieve that. Similarly, they still have Atlas working on the Atlas stuff, and we all know that Persona 6 will inevitably be a fantastic game. Don't sleep on Shin Megami Tensei 5, by the way. That is a great game. That is such a good game. But you know what I mean. Even if Metaphor didn't blow the doors off sales-wise, which it should have, I guess people are waiting for the inevitable, like, updated re-release like they always do. But we know that Sega's pretty confident on Persona 6 being big. Meanwhile, they'll just keep re-releasing games. But the big change is, of course, the Sega core, going from just, we make some weird games here and there, but mostly Sonic, and back to, no, we need to build out our IP and our catalog. And seeing that a lot of these companies are refocusing all of their efforts to make sure that they produce great single-player experiences that can live on for a while and that can sell in the West, paying extra attention to platforms like PC, spells a very...
Like I said, the only game that I'm particularly waiting for is Kingdom Hearts 4. That is the only game I'm waiting for from Square Enix. But like I know for a fact they have to finish Final Fantasy VII Part 3 in order for Tetsuya Nomura to get back to full development on, because he's juggling with both of them. At least the last time I've heard of interview that he was juggling both of them at the same time. So at the moment, I think he's working to finishing off Final Fantasy VII Part 3, and then I assume he'll be back full time on Kingdom Hearts 4, and that's basically what's going to happen.
Good future, one that potentially, if it keeps going this way, will also influence the West, especially if the Western dollars and euros are being spent on Japanese games instead of Western games. They will have no option but
well, the only reason why is because the Western devs are making shitty ass games. They're making shitty ass live service slop. I'm like, take a look at what's happening to Marathon. Take a look at what happened to High Guard. Take a look what happened to Concord, you know? It's just, I'm like, do I need to say more? I'm like one of the more successful recent live service games was for Marvel Rivals. You know, that one did fantastically well. I'm like, I think there's only like one Western live service game that I can think of that did well recently, was Helldivers. Helldivers did pretty well, until the controversy or so what Sony did, but that was on Sony's side, not really on the developer side. That was only on Sony, so.
And look at what the business practices and the trends are coming from over there.
Also, when I'm saying Sony, I'm saying Sony of America, not Sony Japan. Sony Japan, you know, they want to eliminate the American branch. But unfortunately they can't, because there's some complicated issues there and, you know, blah, 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 blah. But it's Sony of America that's causing issues with Sony.
Now, you might have noticed that I left out two pretty big outliers here, those being PlayStation and Bandai Namco. Now,
they did very well. Helldivers did very well as a live service game. Do I need to pop up the charts for you to see?
Bandai Namco's a pretty strange cookie because a lot of the games that they have upcoming are not multiplayer focused or live service focused at all. I am incredibly excited for Ace Combat 8 because I think, Ace Combat 7 was a huge game, but Ace Combat 8 could push that even further, be the breakout hit of the series that really does, tens of millions. And I'll say I'm cautiously optimistic about Echoes of Aincrad because I don't know. But at this point, Bandai Namco is one of the biggest publishers on the planet. They actually have deals everywhere. It's not just Japanese-focused games, it's stuff like Blood of the Dawnwalker and most of what From Software does. And they recently entered a partnership with PlayStation to focus on AI tools for video game development. So, what's their focus? Because if it's more aligned with PlayStation, you would think that they're going to continue trying for live services, because God knows that PlayStation still hasn't given up on that.
Not for JP's side. If it's Sony, I would assume this is gonna be Sony of Japan, if I have to take a guess, because at the end of the day, the headquarters of Sony is in JP. Yeah, because the main headquarters is in JP. That's the only reason why. I'm like, we can take a look at it. Let me see. What's the key details for video and content productions? Piloting specifically centers on exploring how generative AI can enhance video and audio production processes. Real world testing, companies are testing technologies that have existing brands. For instance, they are using generative AI to create official images for Bandai's Gunpla Gundam plastic model kits, utilizing tools called Mockingbird to turn real actor movements into 3D animations, broader industry rollouts. Alongside this partnership, Sony Interactive Entertainment revealed that all of their first-party PlayStation studios are already integrating AI into automated repetitive workflow in 3D modeling, facial animations, and quality assurance. Azu, thank you for the 14 months. Let me see. Let me see. Yes, it is the two. It is the two Japanese. Yeah, it is the two Japanese. Because we all know for America, we all know for a fact that Sony in America would never be like this, because they would. The only reason why is because they'd be like, ew, AI, ew, no, I don't want my job taken away from me. That's pretty much that's like the only thing I can think of. And also, just from looking at it.
God knows that PlayStation still hasn't given up on that, and we don't know if they ever will. I find it very funny that PlayStation today is focusing on live services as much as possible, still, and AI tools for video game development. It's like
I just have to correct him that it's two different Sonys: Sony of America and Sony of Japan. Sony of America is the one that's working on the live service slot, basically, and then the Sony of Japan is doing what they want to do over there. They want to do stuff, but the problem is Sony of America is the one that's causing all the chaos that's happening at Sony Japan.
The last company to get the memo. Most sold console, least news articles read. And this is a topic for another video that I've been working on that has taken a lot of research to get going, but I just find the juxtaposition of PlayStation banking on AI and live services at the same time that Xbox rebrands and says no to Copilot on mobile and Xbox. It feels like the world has gone mad, although it's more that Xbox has finally come back around to understanding that they are the challenger.
Yeah, but looking at Intuit, it's Sony from there with Bandai, or so they're using the AI specifically for their thing that we just read, like the bullet points of like the summary of what it's actually being used for.
When you're humble and listening to what people want in order to gain their favor, decisions like these get made. Also, I didn't know where else to fit this, but the Capcom thing says that they need to bolster IP such as Phoenix Wright and Dragon's Dogma. If you're thinking what I'm thinking and you're excited, yeah, we deserve it.
Are you guys gonna get a Dragon's Dogma DLC? No shot that they're gonna announce a Dragon's Dogma DLC. I'm like, they still need to fix the goddamn game to begin with, because I heard the game is not really well optimized, but if they make a DLC, that'd be kind of wild to hear.
It's okay, we've earned it. Please, 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 Capcom, also release the Mercenaries. That new DLC for Resident Evil 9, that was like, that was fine, but like, can we please get Mercenaries? But overall, those takeaways from all of the earnings reports, which this video was indeed delayed because I was waiting on Square Enix, spell a pretty good future for video games overall. Sure, specifically for games that come from Japan, sure. But we can't ignore the impact of Japan and their analysis on trends that will trickle down into everything else as years come by. It's not like Japan is always first to the punch.
Yeah.
If anything, they're very reticent to change. So what that means is that the fact that they're kind of first to the punch on this should be very telling of where the industry is headed. Because it'd be very strange if all of them were wrong at the same time. If all of them came to the same conclusion, wrong for all of them. That would be very weird, and it would also mean that what I've been talking about for the last year and a half was also wrong. So I'm going to refuse to believe in that, and instead, I'm going to believe that video games, we're kind of back in a way, right? Like, this year you could feel it. It's just a bit more optimistic overall, and that's good. Let's enjoy that. Let's go play some good games.
My question is, right, once Japan finally wakes up, right, which they are technically, right? Since China, Korea, and Japan already can hold a tight-knit grip in the gaming sphere, my question is, how long will it take for the Western side devs to realize that, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do live service anymore. Maybe we should probably do the same thing with the JP, what the Chinese and the Korean developers are doing, you know? Will they finally wake up? Who knows? We'll probably see. My bet's that probably won't, but that's just me anyways.
And hopefully this video gave you a very detailed and interesting
I like this video.
breakdown
This was a really good
on
video.
what is happening
Thank you
within
for
the
the
world
information.
of games. If it did, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Always appreciated. And
Yes.
maybe now by the end of the video, I've convinced you that what I do is good. And now you can subscribe. That would be absolutely appreciated. I also want to give an extra special thank.
True, because game development takes a bit. And I'm super curious on the game that one of my friends that are making. I am super curious how the development is in that game in general, because I haven't heard jack shit all about that game ever since the trailer that was released a while back. I'm curious where the where is it at now, as in like development status. You'll know it when it comes out, if it ever comes out, to be honest. If it comes out, that's my curiosity. If it doesn't, like, will it come out? Question mark. Will it come out? I want to know specifically when that game will be out, because I do want to play, and I'm super curious if they changed it, if they changed their mind on the development because of the way how the gaming landscape has been changing as of recently, or they're gonna stick to their guns and release that game, and then they're gonna catch a bunch of flack on it. Because all I gotta say is that game, at least what I've been told specifically about that game, it was during the the wokeness of everything. So this was a couple years. This was many couple years in the past. So I am super curious to see how it is now, if they change anything major, or they're just gonna stick to their guns and they're not gonna make that much money. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I haven't heard anything about the game. I'm still waiting for that game to come out, and that's pretty much about it. Nah, double down is the only way. I'd be curious if they actually double down and just go full on crazy Joe Schmo wokeness on that. So that's all I gotta say. But anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. If I remember correctly, I think that specific game is made in the western side. Yes, that is, yeah, that game is made in the western side. The only reason why is because what my friend told me, specifically, what was happening behind the scenes. That's all I have to say about that, but yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And honestly, we will see when that game comes out, if the game comes out. Because I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't heard a diddly squat. Maybe Summer Game Fest. Maybe Summer Game Fest there might be something. We will see. But I'm keeping my expectations pretty low on that game, and I expect everyone to keep their expectations pretty low. But I'll be keeping an eye out to see if it actually pops up at Summer Game Fest. And anyways, that's the end of the video. And peace.